Mark Rogers, TV talking college football. And when I say college football, if you're a college football fan, these are the kind of games that you really get amped up for. This is historical kind of stuff. Miami, Notre Dame, you probably know the history, but the here and now is pretty exciting too. When we talk about the game between number 7 Miami and the Irish at number 3, we bring in Cam Underwood, State of the U, to help us sort this one out and get us set for a huge one. So what do you think, Cam? Is this about as good as it gets?
Yeah, this is getting towards the pinnacle of what college football is about. Mark Richt said last week the Virginia Tech game, which was 10 versus 13, Miami being 10th and Virginia Tech being 13th. He said that game was why you come to Miami as a coach, as a player, as a fan. That's what you look for. And that was true. And Miami won that game, blew them out. It could have been worse on the scoreboard because Miami dominated that game. And then you raise the stakes even further. Yeah, this is a huge game. This is a game I had circled ever since last year. I don't know if you guys remember, but I went to the game up in South Bend last year, spent some time in Chicago with my family before I drove over the first time. And being from Detroit, it was the first time I'd ever been to South Bend, because who goes to South Bend? But I did that, and I had that experience, and I've told it on Twitter, but I almost got kicked out of the game. And there was like old Grandpa Farmer Jones was the usher in the section, and I'm getting profiled and all kinds of stuff, man. And it was serious business. So that left a sour taste in my mouth, because I don't like losing, and I hate losing to Notre Dame in general. But yeah, now this year you have, instead of the aggregate, I think the teams had a combined 8 or 9 losses going into this game last year. This year, there's one loss between the two teams, and that's Notre Dame, a 1-point loss at home to Georgia. So you got a one-loss team and an undefeated team, historical rivals who have played for national championships before, won national championships before, obviously. Just with a ton of NFL talent and storylines and things like that. So this is about as good as it gets, and I'm getting really excited for this week's game.
Hey, Cam, before we take off on the matchup against the Irish, you mentioned exactly in the same terms that I was going to mention the performance against Virginia Tech. Almost perfect. I'll say complete performance from the opening series, taking the ball all the way down the field to the half-yard line. And even though they get turned away, it was established, okay, this team's going to be able to move the ball against a really good Virginia Tech defense and then shut down the Hokies offense. And yeah, it was 14-3, 14-6, whatever the scores were. It was typically between 1 and 2 scores, so it didn't get out of hand. And there were some times in there that you thought, okay, Virginia Tech, if they can make a play or two here, then they can get within 1 score and it's a game. But there was no comparison between the two teams. It was a decided win. So you had to be real happy with a complete performance, considering the knocks against the team, even though they were undefeated coming in.
Yeah, I mean, that was the best game from cover to cover, front to back, that we had played this entire season. I love the enthusiasm and the gumption of Mark Richt to go for it on 4th down and goal on the first drive. I did not like the play call or the execution of that play call, but I liked the bravado to go down the field and walk down there. Had almost 500 yards of offense against Virginia Tech, had 28 points, then it could have easily been 38 points, or even more. Just a dominant performance. The defense stood up to the challenge of a diverse offense that, Virginia Tech runs the ball, and that's the thing that they've always done. Yeah, I know that Justin Fuente is going to bring in some motion. He's going to do some other kind of passing concept things too. But the secondary played lockdown. The special teams game was really, really good. It just felt good because this team had been, there'd been major malfunctions at times during the game and games previously. And even during this game, there were times when, Malik Rozier had 3 interceptions in 6 throws. He had 2 interceptions in 3 throws even. So it could have gone a different way. The only reason I think that Virginia Tech scored a touchdown was because they had a 17-yard field after a quick turnover on one possession, an interception from Malik Rozier, whatever. It was a great game. And that kind of shows what the potential for this team is. And even in blowing out Virginia Tech, even by dominating that game, they didn't really play a complete game, Miami, that is. If you take away some of those turnovers, if, you finish those drives, a buddy of mine on Twitter wrote this. He said, that was the best game we played, and we won by 3 scores, and we didn't even play completely. If Miami plays a complete game in all facets, like to their top potential, it's going to be a boat race against most teams out there. I mean, just zoom, zoom, zoom. I mean, this team can score from anywhere on offense. We're going to shut you down on defense, take the ball away on defense. If we finish drives and are able to convert third downs, I don't think it's going to be close. I mean, I'm not saying today or on Saturday against Notre Dame, but if Miami hits peak efficiency, man, that's scary. And to have the kind of performance that we had with even an 80-85% performance, that's encouraging. And hopefully this is the week against Notre Dame that I get 100% performance, because I need a win. Thank you very much.
So, Cam, when you bring up being able to score from anywhere on the field, I'm even going to put Braxton Berrios and Amon Richards to the side, because the two guys that I think of are Jeff Thomas and Christopher Herndon. And I think of Thomas because I think it's been maybe only 2 consecutive weeks. It seems like 3 that there was one play, and it was right after the half, of course, again in the previous game, the Syracuse game. Anyway, no, North Carolina game, that he gets lined up in the slot, and it's just, bam, he takes off and throws up his hand, and it's 75 yards, and it's a touchdown like that. And when you've got a guy like that, boy, you can erase a lot of issues. You can go from having a mundane quarter of offense to, okay, we scored a touchdown, and we're on a 28-point pace. It just changes things. And Christopher Herndon's emerging as one of the better players at his position in football.
Yeah, I agree with both of those, except for one little thing. Jeff Thomas is playing outside now. He's not playing slot. So he's playing the Z receiver next to Braxton Berrios, who's playing inside. So that touchdown at North Carolina, he was the outside receiver to the bottom of the screen, if you go back and watch that. And yeah, he put the shake on and threw up the Randy Moss hand and everything, which is so just embarrassing. Like, I'm doing my job on the football field. I'm running around, and I have time to throw the hand up and say, "Yo, I'm so wide open. Give me the ball right now." Yo, like that's crazy to me. So, but speed masks a lot of things. Speed changes the game. There's SB Nation's site called Team Speed Kills, because team speed kills, bro. I mean, if you can teach, you can get bigger, you can get stronger. You can get a little bit faster, but the kind of speed that Jeff Thomas has, you can't teach that. That's like Kristaps Porzingis. You can't teach being 7'3" tall. Like, there's certain things you just have to have, and he has that. And if you remember back to our recruiting videos previously, before National Signing Day 2017, the whole 2016 season, Mark Richt kept saying, we need speed at receiver. We need more speed. We need more speed. We need more speed. And we finally have that in Jeff Thomas and Mike Harley, who's nursing a little bit of an ankle injury, but those developments are positive. Going to Christopher Herndon, I've been saying for a long time that he's a very, very good player. It just kind of sucked for his national notoriety, because you had this athletic freak of David Njoku who's playing at the same time as him. And I'm not even going to say that Njoku started in front of Herndon, because we ran a lot of multiple tight end sets and moved those guys around. So they were co-starters. But when Njoku was running, a 4.5 40 and he's leaping 38 inches over people into the end zone, that kind of pops. And you forget, 23, the other tight end, had damn good numbers. He had better numbers than most other tight ends in America. You just had this, freak next to him. So now Christopher Herndon gets to play the Herndon role mixed a little bit with the Njoku role from last year. I mean, when you were talking about a tight end taking a little flat pass, a little flat route, turning it upfield and going almost 50 yards for a touchdown, running past and through people. You've seen that against North Carolina up that seam route. Rozier threw a beautiful ball into the triangle in between 3 receivers or 3 defenders, caught the ball, spun, goes 51 yards to the house. It's crazy that Miami has the kind of speed and talent at a receiver position where we're talking about a tight end as being an electric player who can score from anywhere. But that's the kind of talent that Miami has, and we're finally seeing that come to the forefront. Obviously, we cannot forget about Travis Homer, who, he had a 64-yard touchdown against Virginia Tech, a very stout defense. that people like to talk about being very, very good. He just ran past him. And it was funny because when Mark Walton went down, people were saying that Travis Homer didn't have breakaway speed or athleticism, which I laughed at because the kid scored, I think it was like 5 or 6 touchdowns of 80 or 90 yards as a high school senior 2 years ago. And you saw that kind of speed come to the forefront and just be, demonstrated on the field against Virginia Tech. So there's a lot of guys out there. Braxton Berrios, he's had a couple long catches. Amon Richards had like a 43-yard post pattern that if the throw is a little bit better, he walks in from about 60 yards. So yeah, I mean, there's more on top of that. Just Miami has weapons everywhere, and hopefully, they're able to find some space against Notre Dame. But yeah, I mean, the names are multiple, and the talent is palpable. So Miami's offense is starting to click with the big plays, and hopefully that continues.
Cam Underwood, State of the U, joining us to break down Miami taking on Notre Dame, one of the marquee matchups in college football this season. Not necessarily diagnosed that way in the preseason, but both teams have played to their potential to a certain extent, at least in the standings, with Notre Dame just the 1-point loss at home against Georgia. So if we flip it to the other side, you got, hopefully for college football fans, not necessarily for Miami, Josh Adams, who had a number of injuries. There was a concussion concern against who they played last week against Wake Forest. And also another injury with Josh Adams, Heisman candidate at running back for Notre Dame. And they just have run the ball down everybody's throat except Georgia, 55 yards. I saw the Virginia Tech game start to finish, that front seven that you got, R.J. McIntosh and the crew. They certainly lived up to the billing. But that's going to be a heavyweight matchup with NFL offensive linemen that are being touted that good for Notre Dame, and Adams at running back versus this front seven.
Yeah, that matchup between Notre Dame's offensive line and Josh Adams, who's just a horse at running back, and Brandon Wimbush also, because he's not the greatest passing quarterback, but man, that kid can run. So, those guys against Miami's front seven. So it's basically 7-on-7, but not the passing variety that high schools play in the summertime. We're talking inside run or even, outside, but, in the run game, 7-on-7. That's going to, that's going to be huge. Yeah, R.J. McIntosh, Kendrick Norton on the inside, they're going to have to win their matchups more often than not. And if they're able, it's the defensive tackles and even the defensive line, you're talking about Joe Jackson, you're talking about Trent Harris, you're talking about Chad Thomas, the defensive ends. Jonathan Garvin's going to get more playing time. DJ Johnson's going to get more playing time because Demetrius Jackson, one of our better run defenders, he's lost for the year with a knee injury. He just had surgery the other day. But Jonathan Garvin was our third team defensive end, and he had a strip sack and a fumble recovery in the last game against Virginia Tech. So he has plenty of talent, but I don't know how he's going to stand up to a heavy run game. So the defensive line is going to need to do their job, and that's going to hopefully allow the linebackers and safeties and, even the cornerbacks, the whole defense really has to swarm to the ball in the run game and really be great with run support. Miami got that in the past from guys like Corn Elder at a cornerback, from Rayshawn Jenkins, things like that. And we're going to need that from all of the guys. But the guys up front are really going to have to bring their A game. And because, like I said, Notre Dame is very good. They got, their left tackle, left guard are both probably going to be top 3-round draft picks. Josh Adams is 6'2", 227, 230, I want to say, is a running back. Brandon Wimbush also has good size. So, that's really going to be, I think, where the game is won or lost. I think that Miami has the advantage on the offensive side when they have the ball, because just the explosiveness on offense, like I was talking about, but being able to curtail the Notre Dame run game is going to be important. And just to talk about that, it's not going to be about the yards. It's going to be about the yards per play. So, like against the Georgia Tech, they're going to have 200 yards, 300 yards rushing, something like that. If you're giving up 8-9 yards a carry, that's a problem. If you're giving up 3-4 yards a carry, then you kind of can get an advantage, get a couple tackles for loss, put them behind the sticks. That's where you're able to change the game. Miami's really good at the yards per carry average, not necessarily on the net total average of rushing allowed. So I'm good with that. I don't need the final rushing yardage number to necessarily hit a certain thing, as long as yards per carry and we're able to get off the field on defense when we need to. Obviously, if the yards rushed for total is, 400 or 500, that's a problem. But if it's in the 200s, maybe 220, 230, but they're only averaging 3.5 yards per carry, something like that, I think I'll probably be able to live with that. But at the end of the day, whatever the numbers are, the talent needs to make the plays on the field. So defensive line and linebackers really are going to need to step up for Miami to be competitive in this game.
And Cam, one of these days, college football is going to catch up with the NFL and actually total rushing statistics and not include quarterback sacks. Those are two completely different categories. So I hate when I know that a quarterback was sacked 6 times in a game and who knows how many yards he lost, and I'm trying to measure the rushing statistics against the rush defense, and it's so skewed because the rushing average gets compromised by the sacks, and that's how college football figures it out, but the NFL is able to figure it out the other way and exclude the sacks, and that just drives me nuts. The one thing I need you to clarify here, Cam, and this is going back to summer camp, but I am getting bombarded with people commenting on my YouTube channel about you declaring that N'Kosi Perry was going to be the starting quarterback for Miami. My memory serves me that you said you wanted him to win the job because you know the immense potential. You didn't predict him to win the job necessarily. That's my memory.
Yeah, and that's kind of like half right. I do see that N'Kosi Perry has athleticism and potential. I thought that he would have around this time, maybe end of October, his potential would have come to the forefront, and then he would have eventually gotten the starting job then. I didn't think that he was going to start like game 1 or anything. So, yeah, I wanted N'Kosi Perry to win the job. That's 100% correct. That's what I said. I meant that. But I didn't think he was going to win it straight away. I thought he was going to eventually take over during the year. But that's just not the case. I see that, there are reports that N'Kosi Perry is progressing during practice, but Malik Rozier is playing way better than I thought he was going to, honestly. And that's what has kept him on the field, even in spite of the times of bad performance from Rozier, because we've seen some very bad performances. But when he gets good, when he gets going, man, that kid gets on a roll. So, yeah, I wanted N'Kosi Perry to win the job. I do believe that of all of the Miami quarterbacks, he is the most physical talent. I thought he would eventually take it over towards the middle end of October, and that part of my statement has been proven false. But I did not think that N'Kosi Perry was going to win the job from day one, especially considering the fact that he was not an early enrollee. So it's a little bit of what you're saying, and then a little bit also where, yeah, if they're talking about you, I thought that Perry was going to have the job by now. I did. But Malik Rozier is playing way better than I thought he was. So I think that it's kind of 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other, where there is truth being said by everybody. But if you go back and watch those videos, again, I said that I wanted Perry to be the quarterback, that he has the most talent of any player at that position for Miami. I didn't think that he was going to be ready right away, which was true. And I thought he was going to take over eventually, but that part was being false. So kind of halfway right.
You know what I think is at work here, Cam, is that we can evaluate Rozier's play. It's been pretty sporadic, but what is tied to a quarterback's play is the record. So the better the record get, and this is a great thing for Miami, but people suddenly are remembering that's the guy that said N'Kosi Perry should be the starting quarterback. So he must not know what he's talking about. And that's a little revisionist history there. So that's not necessarily fair. But
yeah, I mean, those things happen, but we all make predictions, and sometimes they come true, and sometimes they don't. But
exactly, thank you.
Hey, Malik Rozier is playing way better than I thought he would, and I love the fact that he's proven me wrong like that. Because even though wins are not a quarterback stat, Miami's 8-0 right now, so I'll take it.
So we got Miami with a 28-10 win over Virginia Tech. They're lined up against the Irish, number 3 in the country, coming up this weekend. It's a Saturday night ABC game. And, of course, Cam Underwood is the guy that we need to go to each and every time to talk the very best in Miami football coverage. Join him right there at the State of the U. I asked you about Amon Richards last week. I did see the game against Virginia Tech and didn't really take note of how he looked. He did have 3 catches for 57 yards and a 42-yard catch mixed in there. So were you encouraged by him making some progress last week?
Yeah, I was. And Virginia Tech plays good defense. They, put their top cornerback on Richards to try to take him away, because when he gets going, that changes the entire offense. But he was out there for a lot of plays. He made, a couple good catches, had some tight coverage on a couple others where, either the pass was off a little bit or tipped or something like that. But yeah, I think that was definitely a positive performance, especially when he caught that 42-yard post pattern. And I really wanted him to score on that one, because that would have really, I think, tipped the tide for him. But even when he caught that one ball, then you're going to think, okay, we now have to play defense differently, because we're one play away from 82 taking it to the house. So I was encouraged by what I saw from him. Hopefully he gets going again. He had only 3 catches for 51. I want to say against Notre Dame last year. He also had an 8-yard end around, and that was the one where he jumped over the guy in that who was standing up tall, and then he just leapt right over him, which is pretty cool. So hopefully he's able to build on both his performance against Notre Dame last year and his performance from last week against Virginia Tech, because we need him, and he changes the way that people play defense against Miami. So hopefully that will be something that we see come to fruition on Saturday.
There are only 4 teams in major college football in the Power 5 with undefeated records: Alabama, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Miami, and that's it. And so I would think that Miami, not that anybody wants to lose this game, but they can and win the ACC, especially the path would be defeating Clemson, and that's a marquee win. I would think that that would be clearly enough to get to the college football playoffs. I know you kind of don't want to go there, Cam. You typically look at the opponent ahead, and that's it. You've got that coach's mindset, but that seems to be a good enough resume for me to get the team into the playoffs. Now, I know you can't look at it in a silo, in a vacuum, because you got to know what's going on elsewhere, because we could have a line of one-loss teams, and the job of the playoff selection committee could be fierce to try to sort that out.
Yeah, and that's true. I think that the playoff conversation is a thing that, we're going to have now, because Miami has won enough games to earn a right to talk about these kind of things. Even though I do try to be a little bit more focused on, the week ahead, it's fun a little bit to look ahead and, into the couple weeks, months ahead, and say, hey, if we do what needs to be done, then the proper reward can be there. It'll be interesting to see if we take the hypothetical of Miami losing. It will be interesting to see what happens with the committee, because the arguments that the committee is using for ranking teams highly, they're using the same argument in the same way to then rank Miami lower than I think they should be. So if you're talking strength of schedule, you talk about Alabama having a strength of schedule. They don't have strength of schedule. They have the name Alabama as the brand. But then you talk about Miami not having strength of schedule, when every metric has Miami demonstrably better on strength of schedule than Alabama. You're talking out of the side of your neck. Like, you're talking out of both sides of your face, because it's the exact same metric and you're using it in 2 different ways, one to support somebody else and then deride Miami. And it will be interesting to see, if Miami were to lose, how that works relative to losses, because I tweeted it out during the college football playoff show yesterday, but Herb Street said not to get caught up in wins and losses, not the win-loss record, as though winning is not the point of the game. Otherwise, we would be talking about teams like Florida or Florida State or other teams that have less than 500 records. Those guys are 3-5 because they're trash. But we're not talking about them in terms of the college football playoff, because wins and losses matter, and they matter for everybody except for Miami. And it's interesting. So if Miami were to lose to Notre Dame, that would be the best loss of anybody other than Notre Dame's loss to Georgia at current. That should be, Clemson lost to a team that has 5 losses right now that might not even make a bowl game in Syracuse. But that's a great loss, and everything. That's a better, if Miami loses to Notre Dame, that's a better loss than them. That's a better loss than, who else is a one-loss team up there? Whoever it is, except for Notre Dame, that's the best one-loss out there. But it won't be looked at like that because it's Miami. That's going to say, okay, Miami's trash and everything, and they're just going to drop like a rock.
I got you, Cam. Washington is only 2 spots behind Miami, and they have a loss already. It's against Arizona State, and we could argue all night about Washington's best win, but it doesn't matter what the argument is, because it's awful. Their best win is either Oregon or UCLA or Rutgers.
Yeah, I mean, UCLA, they're getting a little bit better and everything, but when they played, like, it wasn't anything marquee. Exactly. So you have these teams that have one loss, and everybody's talking about, oh, this is a great loss and this is a fantastic loss. Miami doesn't have any losses. But you're then trying to say, okay, when we're talking about Miami, don't get caught up in the wins and losses. And then if Miami were to lose, we're going to say, okay, well, the losses matter and the wins don't. And it's just, there's such duplicity going on in the conversation. And I think that's really where the point of contention for Miami is and will be, especially if there's a loss on the record. If there's not a loss on the record, that's pretty much, I think, the only way that Miami is going to get into the playoff, honestly. Or maybe a loss to Clemson or something like that, a one-loss Clemson team in the ACC championship game. Just because people have, instead of looking for ways to be positive about Miami, about saying, okay, this team has found ways to win and things like that, which for every other team in the past of college football, we're talking about, oh, they have championship caliber and they have stick-to-itiveness and they're gritty and they're strong and they, never quit. For Miami, it's, oh, well, they played a bad team close. Okay, cool. Clemson played a bad team close and lost, but we're not going to talk about that. It's just, these kind of things, like, that's really where my point of contention is. And I think a lot of my Canes fans family share that kind of thought with me. But, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But hopefully Miami wins this week and the week after and the week after and the week after and gets to 11-0 and goes into the playoff without a loss. Because if that doesn't happen, I have the strong sensation, feeling, thought, premonition that Miami is going to get screwed.
So I'm pretty much right there with you, Cam. And I don't necessarily think Syracuse is a bad team. It depends on what you mean when you say good and bad. But I think they're a pretty decent team. I think they're a top 50 team in the country. The team that I watched beat Clemson and lose to Miami within one score. They were a capable football team. No, they're not great. Like you say, they may miss a bowl game, but they've had a tough schedule and they're okay. And you're completely right with the Alabama analogy. The only difference I'll make, and this to me is the last criteria, is dominance of play. To me, it's more about, do you win your games? And then if you're winning your games, let's evaluate who you beat. And let's evaluate, if you lost a game, did you play an extremely difficult team and play them close, i.e. the Notre Dame, Georgia situation where really good teams going at it, 20-19 game. Okay, you played somebody really good out of conference and you didn't quite get it done, but you showed that you can perform at that level. And then down beyond those metrics, to me, is how dominant were you? And that's the only separation I would make with Alabama, Miami, would be that Alabama's been pretty much start to finish dominant against bad teams, but dominant. But other than that, yeah, you can't. Alabama being number one by most people's standards, I know they're number two in the rankings, versus their schedule. They haven't played a team probably as good as Virginia Tech.
Right, and that's where, again, it's just you're talking about two different things. Now, if the committee were to say Miami didn't win by enough, and we're talking about that dominance of play factor, true, I'm not going to say that Miami has been more dominant in a game or overall this season than Alabama. That's true. I have no problem with that. But when you start saying strength of schedule and quality losses and things like that, there is no conversation that can be had on the statistics of what has actually happened, where a lot of these teams are ranked ahead of Miami. Or I'll even remove myself from the situation. Wisconsin, because they're 9-0 and undefeated and going through the same thing that Miami is. Now, is their schedule also pillowy soft? Sure. But they still haven't lost a game. And, it's funny when you're talking about certain teams that you're saying, okay, all these points of conversation change. And the things where you could say, all right, Miami hasn't, or we would like it if they had won by more points. I would have liked it if they won by more points. You think I wanted to be there with my heart pounding in my chest, waiting until the last play, week after week after week after week? No, I want a 97-3 blowout, but that wasn't what happened. But Miami found a way to win. Same thing with Wisconsin. They're just going out and winning games. So if you were to say Miami didn't win by enough points, we want to see them dominate, I could live with that because that's the truth. But then when the committee comes out and says, and I hate the committee because Kirby Hocutt, Miami's former athletic director, is the chair of the committee, and he's a snake and a weasel, and I do not like him. But anyway, When you're coming out and saying things like strength of schedule and quality losses and some of these things where Miami's strength of schedule is stronger than most of the teams that are up at the top, Miami's quality losses don't exist because we haven't lost a game. Those kind of things are what are frustrating. Not if they were to say, you know, hey, we want a more dominant performance or we want blah, blah, blah. Or honestly, let's be real. The ghost of Al Golden still lives in with the Miami name of the Miami Hurricanes right now, and we don't believe that they're really that they've come back to being a quality, relevant team. We still think and have Al Golden PTSD, where this team is going to, you know, all of a sudden fall apart and disintegrate. So until you get through more games where you haven't done that, we're not going to believe that. I could accept that as being true, but that's not what is being propped up by the committee, and that's where I have a problem.
It would be nice that in addition to stripping the logos off the helmets, they could strip the metrics down so much that the committee members couldn't identify what teams were being compared and then have a true evaluation of the teams. But of course, that's next to impossible. And yeah, for Wisconsin, I think the same holds true. They have some difficult games finally on their schedule, but they've done everything that they've been asked to do to date, and that's win all the games. I've got Miami at number 4. I think that's favorable considering Clemson did lose. Miami has not lost. Yes, Clemson did defeat Auburn. They're a good football team, but on the flip side, they both had like performances against Virginia Tech. They pretty much took on the best team on their schedule to date and beat them very comparably, and Miami didn't lose. And yeah, Clemson has one other good win, but Miami didn't lose to the same team that Clemson did lose to. And now you're getting to a point in the schedule between Clemson and Miami where they've got about 4 like games. And really the performances, other than Clemson going out there and really tearing apart Georgia Tech, are pretty comparable. So that's why I've got Miami at 4 and Clemson at 5. No, I've got Clemson at 6 behind Oklahoma. But that's just me. What do I know?
And I think that's fair. For me right now, it would be Georgia, Alabama, Wisconsin, and Miami, 1, 2, 3, 4, because they're undefeated. Those should be the top 4 teams as of now, and things will update. And it's funny because it's talking about, okay, things will update with wins or losses. Things will update with wins or losses. These teams have not lost yet. They should be the top 4 teams as of today right now. If Miami loses, if Wisconsin, if any team up at the top loses, then you can say, okay, cool, we're going to drop them down. But if we're talking about the body of work to this point, it has to be the undefeated teams. That's just, it's asinine to have other teams who have losses on their record right now ranked ahead of any of the undefeated teams. And that's just the way that I feel about it. And if Miami was in there or not, I would feel the same. And I'm on record as having said this in the past. Your record is incontrovertible. You are who your record says you are. So I think those teams should be to the top, and then you get the update if and only if they lose. And they do that, or the committee is doing that in 2 cases with Georgia and Alabama. So again, you're talking about that name brand getting the benefit of the doubt, that same or that kind of commentary, or that thought saying, okay, well, when they lose or if they lose, then we'll update it. But they've beaten everybody to their on their path to this point, so that's why we're going to put them to the top. I believe that Wisconsin and Miami at 9-0 and 8-0 respectively deserve that same kind of respect as any undefeated team. And hey, if you even want to throw UCF higher than they are, 18th, I want to say, yeah, I'm with that. But I mean, I just think that there's a value in being undefeated, and anybody who tells you otherwise is a liar. And I wish that the committee were honest and transparent in that, and you valued all of the wins being you can only play the schedule that's in front of you. We're not playing our schedule from 2013. That might have been more difficult than this year, but still, we're winning every game that's in front of us. So is Wisconsin. So are Alabama and Georgia. And nobody is talking about Alabama or Georgia as necessarily needing to have a correction because, well, even if they are being dominant, Alabama is Alabama on the front, even though they're playing the sisters of the poor on the other side of the ball. But whatever. So I wish that the undefeated teams were at the top, and then you can get updates after that. But that's not the way that things are, which is why we got 20 minutes out of this segment talking about this.
And it's one of the reasons why each and every week I look at the top 25 from the AP and the coaches poll, and I cut a video and I break it down as to which scenarios are completely illogical and inconsistent in terms of the reasoning why one team is in one place and one is in the other. And I'm convinced that preseason rankings stay in the heads of a lot of people, and there are certain teams that have to lose and lose and lose to finally get dropped. And I'll raise my hand toward my team, Ohio State. Preseason perception, great team. So they got to lose. And then, then they got to lose again. And Vegas tells us the same thing. Ohio State's a 15-point favorite against Michigan State this week. And I think that's pretty absurd. But that's another subject. We'll get back to Miami, Notre Dame, and if you have any final thoughts on this matchup. And I also wanted to ask you about the Catholics versus Convicts documentary, and if you've taken that in, I'm sure you have, and your thoughts about how well done that was and what that brings to mind.
So I'm going to start with the game. We have a bunch of content up on the website, stateoftheu.com. We have video breakdowns of Notre Dame, Georgia. I want to say there's another one that's coming up previewing exactly what Notre Dame has done recently and how Miami can combat that, or how Notre Dame would use that interaction. There's a bunch of other commentary on the website. We're getting basketball rolling also because the season opener is on Friday. But there's a lot of stuff. So I'd say go there. We just have a variety of voices and commentary and analysis, which I think really speaks to what's going on there. At this point, everybody is really consumed a lot of Miami and Notre Dame for this year. They know where the teams stand. They know the historical part of it and everything. So, we try to bring you, the best in Miami Hurricanes coverage over at State of the U. So I would say go there. And then One Foot Down, our SB Nation sister site, we did a question and answer with them and some other crossover kind of things. So, look at that. So, you're going to think what you're going to think. People probably already have their score predictions in mind and whatnot. So there's not too much more that I can say about that other than I do have to say again that I believe Brian Kelly to be a reprehensible human being, and rest in peace Declan Sullivan and Lizzie Seberg, because I will not ever forget or forgive that those two young people had to lose their lives at the University of Notre Dame for a variety of reasons. And you can read about that. You can Google those names. But people talk about me hating Brian Kelly, and that's one thing that I can't forgive or forget it. And you can look it up and get more for that. So that's my spiel on Miami Notre Dame for this year, which is the first part of your question. The second part, that 30 for 30 film was terrible. It was the worst one I've ever seen. It was an ode to copyright infringement, and they're calling Miami thugs and convicts and everything, and you literally have a 90-minute, 2-hour film where it's like, oh, well, I knew it was copyright infringement. I knew it was trademark, going over that and everything, and we weren't supposed to sell these T-shirts, and we weren't supposed to do that, and it's just it's a love letter to, that kind of stuff. And people want to say, oh, well, he's just an enterprising kid and whatever. Yeah, but if there's a guy on South Beach who's selling T-shirts, then he's the biggest thug of life. Right. Okay. Then you have these yuppies, I'm not going to use that term, but you have these people from Notre Dame of all kinds of backgrounds and ethnicities talking about, oh, I hated Miami and everything they stood for winning, for having bravado, for going out and, having swag. And there's a T-shirt, says, Miami invented swagger on the front, and on the back it said, if you don't want us to dance, don't let us in the end zone. Like, it's so, again, just like this other conversation about the committee, it's so duplicitous, because when Notre Dame was getting every single recruit who had any talent in America back in, the 1890s through the 1930s, and they were blowing people out 93-2, it was fine. Oh, we're going to run up the score. Oh, it's another touchdown. Oh, okay, we're going to play that stupid fight song, the leprechaun and shillelagh, all that kind of crap. But if it's Miami, then all of a sudden we're dancing and twerking and, doing, whatever current dance there is from South Florida. Then all of a sudden, oh, these guys are thugs, and I don't believe they did that to Jerry Faust in his final game. If Jerry Faust was a good coach, then his team would have been better. If he was a good recruiter, he would have better players on the team. Because, look, if you're talking about Notre Dame being the Catholic university of these United States, then go out with your national recruiting base and go get better players. But you didn't do it, and we had ballers out there, and we whooped that ass, and we did everything that we need to do. But you have this 90-minute documentary that's trying to make us look bad and feel bad for being good. Not to mention the fact that they screwed us at that game in 1988 where Cleveland Gary did not fumble that ball because he scored a touchdown. And then all of a sudden you're talking about, oh, it's a turnover and you lose and all those kind of things. Miss me with all of that, man. It was, I didn't think it was well done. I didn't think that anything was really shed to light in that 30 for 30, except for the fact of I went to Notre Dame, and this is going to be a love letter to Notre Dame about this kid who openly broke the rules, and we're going to tell you about how he broke the rules and the law for an entire thing, but we're going to call Miami thugs and all those kind of things. And if you have a brain that works, we all know what thugs is a euphemism for. It starts with an N, it ends with an ER, and it has 2 G's in the middle, all right? And I've been this color my entire life. I'm black. I understand that. And people will say, oh, you're taking too much into it. No, I'm not, because behind closed doors, that's exactly what those people are talking about. So you got a 90-minute documentary talking about that. And even now, you can see those thoughts coming out on social media and people talking about from Virginia Tech, oh, those thugs and da-da-da-da. All right, cool. It was fine before, but we beat y'all, so now we're thugs. You want to talk about this? National pundits talking about Miami being thugs and everything. Braxton Berrios is a finalist for the Campbell Award, which is the academic Heisman, with a 3.96 GPA. He's also a semifinalist for the Danny Werfel Man of the Year Award. Miami had the most community service hours in interaction of any college football team last year. You have Demetrius Jackson, who has a nonprofit organization in Miami. Chad Thomas has a nonprofit organization also in Miami. They're giving out toys for Christmas. They're giving out turkeys for Thanksgiving. We do all these things. Go back to youth parks, do all this stuff, but we're thugs? Come on, man. Like, it's infuriating, honestly. And that 30 for 30 was infuriating. I hated that for my job with the website. I had to watch it and talk about it, but it was pathetic. It was terrible. I'll never watch it again. And it's things like that that keep feeding my hate for Notre Dame. And I'm not sorry that I hate Notre Dame, not at all, not one little bit. And yeah, it gets me going. And I know that I started off kind of slow and I got heated up as I kept talking, but that's what happens when I think about Notre Dame and all the things and parts and pieces of the 30 for 30 and all the stuff that they're talking. I hate it, and I want it to go away. It won't go away, but it'll be silenced when Miami beats Notre Dame, 8 o'clock, Saturday night, Hard Rock Stadium. I'm going to be there, hopefully in the stands, not the press box. But yeah, everybody can talk their stuff before the game, and they can talk different stuff after the game, but nobody's been able to talk stuff during a game in over a year, because Miami's won 13 in a row, and I want to see that become 14.
So if I ever have the opportunity to watch that 30 for 30 again, I'm sure I will watch it through a different lens. Of course, I have my perspective, you have your perspective, and I can see your perspective now because I look back on it in the way that I watched it, thinking that they approached it as, isn't it ironic that these are the stereotypes of the two football programs, when in actuality, this is Notre Dame, a Notre Dame student or a collection of students. There were a few other people involved, and this is what they were doing illegally versus it wasn't so much that the documentary highlighted this, but different inserts of interviews with the likes of football players and also people close to the university, Dan Le Batard, other people, Miami-based people that were pointing out the hypocrisy in it. And that's what kind of presented that side to me to even out the approach to the storytelling, if that makes any sense.
No. I that's what they attempted to do, but it was like, 73 minutes of Notre Dame and 15 and a half minutes of Miami counterpoint. So I get that's what they were trying to do, but when you have so much on the one side, you're not really able to controvert that. Yeah, and I mean, I would agree, except for there were so many people, so many of the Notre Dame players who espoused some of the same thoughts and stereotypes of a variety of backgrounds and ethnicities and things, where you wouldn't necessarily think that a person who looked like that would say something like that about somebody else who looked the same way. It just there were so many things that were going on, and it's just, I mean, that is a thing. The 30 for 30 for me, the one from the Notre Dame side. I'm not even gonna say the name of it because I don't need to, but that makes me more more staunch in my fandom, in my pride of the University of Miami. And I wrote this when I was talking about Lane Kiffin potentially being our coach. It is a movement that I believe in on Twitter. Hashtag let's be jerks. Because they're going to think what they're going to think. They're going to say what they're going to say. They're going to hurl the insults. They're going to call us thugs. They're going to say whatever. Fine. I'm a thug, man. And we're going to go out there. We're going to beat thugs. And we're going to get that Cuban link chain. We're going to turn the ball over. We're going to score touchdowns. We're going to dance on you. We're going to do all those things. Because at some point, you got to realize that what they think is what they think, and they're never going to like you. And that's how it is for Miami, period. People, it's a microwave dynasty. It's only been about 35, 40 years that Miami's been good or relevant, even though for the last 13 years we haven't been that good. But, people aren't really going to fall in love with the University of Miami, except for those of us who went to and root for the University of Miami and the natives from South Florida, because the University of Miami Hurricanes is more Miami's team than any other team down here. So let's be jerks. You're going to think that? Fine. I mean, people can go back and watch that 30 for 30 if they want. I'm not going to waste my time because time is precious and you can't ever get those 90 minutes back. But you don't have to like us. That's perfectly fine. Let's be jerks. Let's go.
So anybody that has that perception of Miami as a university or the football program, aren't they stuck in a certain time period? Because if you look at the way Miami players conduct themselves and the aura around the team, is it that unlike other college football teams at this point? I can credit the university, not the university, the football program and the players involved for creating, much like Michigan basketball, for creating that type of swag and that feel to the game and so forth. But in this day and age, doesn't almost every college football program approach it like that? So I would think that those people that would be offended by Miami or still hold that against Miami would be stuck back in 1988.
Yeah. And, again, it's just the hypocrisy. You're talking about Virginia Tech last week. They have the lunch pail, and that's the thing they give to their defenders. And that's awesome, and that's good. But the turnover chain is bad. These other teams got shoulder pads and belts and whatever. But Miami raised the level. Miami has way more swag about it. So Miami has the best thing going. So then everybody's trying to say, oh, that's terrible. But look at the thing that we do and we give, and it's great. It's just, that's a microcosm for all of these same kind of things, which I guess, today's videos with Mark or this whole conversation has been just a study in hypocrisy relative to the Miami Hurricanes, whether it's college football playoff rankings, whether it's that cursed 30 for 30, not Billy Corbin's the U or the U part two. Those are awesome. The other one from the Notre Dame side of things. Yeah, I mean, but like I said, you're not going to really change because people might be stuck in 1988, but for the week that they interact with Miami, they're going to think of Miami whatever they want to, regardless of whatever the truth of the actions are of the players and the coaches, and, whatever the record is. So that's just going to kind of be a thing. They're going to pop up and they're going to say, oh, well, I used to call them thugs, so I'm going to call them thugs or convicts and all that kind of stuff, blah, 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 blah. It's just it's one of those things, but at some point, you just kind of have to accept it. So, I'm fine being the bad guy. So y'all want to hate, then, hate while they hate and let them hate and watch the money pile up. So let's be jerks. Let's go.
And before I let you go, Cam, the other thing that you said that's so true, that's very funny, and I never thought of it this way, is that just because of the black and white video and the non-offensive looking little 1935 football players running around in black and white grainy film doesn't take away from and music and so forth not being offensive to anyone at that point. It doesn't take away from them still putting their foot on people's throats and winning games 65-0 and rubbing it in their faces. It just doesn't seem as offensive because it happened 50, 80 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing it's just it when the shoe is on the other foot, all of a sudden things look differently. But I'm not going to be mad, or I'm not going to really get upset about it. Miami keeps winning games, and whether it's by 1 point or 100 points, that's a good thing in my estimation. I just don't want to hear it from people like Notre Dame or, schools, programs like Notre Dame, whose history was founded on those same kind of things. You want to talk about that Cotton Bowl in 1991 against Texas, where Miami won 46-3. Don't come talk about that as being a bad thing when, for years and years and years, you played the Sisters of the Poor and blew them out by worse scores than that. like I said, when the shoe's on the other foot, people all of a sudden want to think about it differently. But go look in the record books for those young people who are watching. Go Google like the 1900s, teens, and 20s. Go look up all those scores for Notre Dame, every single one of them, and then tell me that they have any right to talk about anybody else blowing out teams as being a bad thing after what they did to pretty much the entire world of college football for 30, 40, 50 years. It's falling on deaf ears over here. And it's a thing where I can see it. Other people can see it. The records are there. The numbers are in black and white, just like those films were from the last time that they were good. Play them on Saturday, and hopefully Miami finally gets another win against them, because it's been a while since we beat Notre Dame at all, let alone in South Florida, because we haven't played Notre Dame in South Florida in a bunch of years. But yeah, Saturday night, I'm really looking forward to it, because then all of the narrative and conversation goes away, and it's only what's on the field. So win or lose, I'm still bleeding orange and green, but let's go Canes.
All right. Always an interesting and informative take from Cam Underwood. Please join him on the State of the U for the very best in Miami football coverage. Canes and Irish, number 3, number 7. It means a whole bunch for this season and historically, as we have just outlined. Cam, great discussion. Appreciate you hanging on for quite a long time to talk it up.
Yeah, man. It's like I said, you got me going. You fed me some softballs and let me hit them out of the park. So it was a fun time, and I think this week is going to be fun also. So thanks for rocking with us, and we'll see you next time.